everybody. It's Naomi here. It's the end of February 2013, and I didn't want to let this month, this wonderful February, pass without saying something about Black History Month. I never talk about race in my practice, my intuitive consulting practice. I have tons of clients from all walks of life, from all over the world, all different backgrounds, races, cultures, classes, languages people speak. And considering that I'm a former academic in the topic of race, it's really profound that it just really doesn't come up in my intuitive readings. But I wanted to take this opportunity to say a little something about the topic of race because it's actually one of the areas of my expertise, and it's also shaped my personal experience in pretty significant ways. So I happen to be Black and white. I am of Swedish American and African American descent. My father's African American, my mother's Swedish American. They are my biological parents, and at birth I was put up for adoption, and I was raised in a Canadian family in Canada. So I was born in the United States, and at age 2, taken to Canada to live with my new adopted family. And my father is a white man, and he is from Kisumu, Kenya, which is the same place Obama's father is from. And so I like to joke that I have a Black American father and a white African father. And my mother is a WASP Canadian, and I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So being biracial, being adopted into a white family, and I found my biological parents when I was 19, so I also have that the connection to my roots as well. They had gotten married a couple years after I was born and created a family, and so my younger sister is my full-blooded sister. So I also have that immersion into that nuclear family and then my extended families, so the white family and the Black family who are in the United States. So I'm close to both my families. My parents both sets are still married and still alive, and so I have a unique perspective on race as a result of my personal experience. So I'm also, as I mentioned, not only Black and white and adopted interracially, but I'm also Canadian and American. I have dual citizenship, and I've spent a lot of time, abroad. My father being from Kenya, well, he's actually a German Kenyan, so he's of German descent, and so I grew up actually speaking German and spent a fair bit of time in Germany growing up, summers, and we actually lived there for 1 year, so I actually got fluent in German when I was a child. So I have a unique and eclectic Black experience, and do I consider myself Black? Yes, I do consider myself Black. Black experiences are really diverse, and they definitely include biracial Black people. I don't think the fact that I'm partially white or that I was adopted into a white family makes me white and not Black, but definitely I don't consider myself to have a stereotypical Black experience, but that doesn't remove me from Blackness. So with all of these identity questions that I had all in my life, trying to figure out who I was, where I belonged, what all this race thing is about, what people were even talking about when they'd call me Black, what made me Black when I looked at my green eyes and my light skin in the mirror, I couldn't really figure out why people were labeling me as Black. I would, often have questions, identity questions, and so I set about reading to try to discover the answer to those questions. All of that voracious and passionate reading led me down the path to becoming an expert in Black studies, which ultimately landed me as a top student, as an undergrad, a summa cum laude graduate, and then I did my PhD in Black issues. And then I got plucked off to Harvard for 2 years to do a postdoc on Black studies, and then I got hired at Yale, and I taught there for 10 years in the Black Studies department at Yale, and I was always questioning what Blackness is, questioning. All those years, my area of expertise was to question what is Blackness, and to kind of deconstruct it and dissect it and push the margins of it and see who belongs in that category and who doesn't, and who are the exceptions, who are on the fringes and the margins of Blackness, who are the people who are described as not being really Black. Those were some of the areas of my expertise, and so I think about someone like Obama now with his identity being an international person, having a father who's Kenyan and a mother who's white and growing up in Hawaii and having this Indonesian part to his identity. Someone like him is an excellent example of the kinds of people that I've studied, throughout Black history, exceptions to the rule or people who sort of stand outside what's expected. So my focus of study was in part to kind of deconstruct categories in general. I really do question the ways we define ourselves and each other as humans, the ways we order ourselves into tribes and categories, and we pigeonhole ourselves and we classify ourselves, and as a freedom-loving person, it never really sits well with me when we try to pin people down to a category or a classification. So when I turned to my intuitive work and my calling to do tarot cards and palm readings, interestingly enough, in that arena, it turns out that we're really just spirits, and that our racial identities are just sort of costumes we wear through this journey of life. Not important in any of the readings I've done. I have tons of clients of different races, and I don't know that I've ever, through the cards or through my intuitive guidance, gone into issues of culture. They sort of don't matter when it comes to the shared life themes that we're all navigating. We're all navigating, all the dominant themes that, that life offers, which includes loss and pain and suffering, and it also includes triumphs and, the hero's journey that we're all on. We're all on our solo, unique path on an exciting unfolding journey. So not only does race not come up as a topic in my readings, maybe very, very rarely would someone ask a question specifically about race or how to handle a situation or something like that, but it's never led, the intuitive guidance I get is never led into the topic of race. But not only that, but I can connect exactly the same no matter what the racial background of the person. I don't feel closer to my Black clients or my biracial clients. I connect. You go into a shared space in every intuitive reading. That's the magic of an intuitive reading, is that you tune into another person's energy, and there's this intimacy that gets created. It's like being basking in a white light. The client and I both connect across our many differences, and whatever those differences are, there's a powerful connection. That was true the very first time I had my own psychic reading. I was in my early to mid-20s, living in San Francisco. I was a young hipster who was wearing all black all the time, and until a hyper-intellectual. I was a grad student, and I had my head shaved, and I had an eyebrow piercing, and I was going through the end of my first love, 5-year serious live-in relationship, and so I went to see a psychic for my birthday. And she was this little wizened Mexican woman in traditional clothing and wise countenance and beautiful deep brown eyes, and you wouldn't have thought from looking up to us we had anything in common at all. But she completely got me. She just tuned right into my life experience, the demise of my relationship, and she completely got exactly who I am. And so that was like an awakening for me at that time. It was still a few years after that before I honed into my own psychic gifts, but I remember at that time finding it so remarkable that this woman that you wouldn't think by looking we would be able to connect that intimately, and it was entirely possible. And now I have that experience with each and every one of my clients, this incredible ability to transcend the ways that we're all separated in our day-to-day life, right? The makes a mockery of the we-they divides between us. The we-they divide is an illusion. We really are all one. It's quite literal. And we really are all connected, and that's a scientific fact. On the level of energy, we're interconnected, but also in the ways of all our lives intersect, we all affect one another. And it's quite a miracle how entirely possible it is to transcend race, to relate to people across lines of difference, to cultivate far more harmony between one another than we ever thought possible, to truly attempt to understand one another. I think there's a lot to be said for breaking down the we-they divide, to really honing into the level to which we truly are all one. So happy Black History Month, everybody. Take good care.